But let's go back to the woman and see what else is happening in the news.
Despite a massive international search and media coverage which prompted reported sightings across the world, what happened to Madeleine McCann has remained a mystery for 13 years. But now detectives have identified a new suspect, a German man who was spotted at the Portuguese holiday resort in Praia de Luz an hour before Madeleine disappeared, and who's serving a sentence in a German prison for sex offences.
My message is to anybody that has information, did he speak to you?
So recently also in the news, they're closing a case about a young girl named Madeleine McCann. Madeleine is believed to have been kidnapped by a sexual predator, but they're closing the case. If you look at the name Madeleine, it says it's a feminine given name ultimately of Greek origin, a modern rendering of the epithet Magdalene, meaning of Magdala. So it's basically a modern version of Mary Magdalene. So it's like they're invoking that as well. So the name Magdalene seems to invoke Mary Magdalene and the idea of Eve and purity. You see also in that iPet goat, the girl in the center is considered lily, like the flower, and it denotes purity. So they're invoking that idea, the defilement of that purity, as in Lilith, which is like the demon. In Jewish mysticism, in Jewish Kabbalah, they have a belief about her being the first woman, blah blah blah. But basically, the idea is when Mary Magdalene was possessed by a demon, she was considered as Lilith, right, instead of Mary Magdalene. Basically, the purity was taken away. If you look at it also in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, the forbidden tree, which I consider the tree of death. Before I had the post on Facebook, I have changed my worldview with time. I had different ideas of what the forbidden tree meant. Now I think it's the tree of death, basically, of righteousness. So death lives within you. But basically, when they ate from that tree, the innocence was taken away from them. But since I'm focusing on the woman, I'm focusing on Eve instead of Adam. But the innocence was taken from both of them. So now it's like they've invited a foreign spirit within them. Everything the Lord created is basically a spirit. It's a manifestation of His word, which is spirit. When that thing is used in a foreign body, by that I mean in a context that it's not supposed to be used, then that spirit has been defiled. It has been fornicated. So when you allow a demon entity to enter into you by whatever means, whatever magic or whatever thing, then you're talking about defilement. So it seems there are many rituals they seem to be acting and invoking. Each would require much explanation. But we can end this by considering another dimension of the woman in their false matrix. And then we might look at a few other posts on my Twitter page. We might just go through them. Here's the flag of the European Union. It says it's an official symbol used by two separate organizations, the Council of Europe and the European Union. It consists of a circle of 12 five-pointed stars on a blue field. So 12 stars. So yet, in another dimension, the woman is the European Union. And the 12 and basically 12 main leaders. And if you're looking back at the iPet goats too, it's like the United States is one of those leaders, but how is that if it's not part of the European Union? In that case, I guess Brexit makes sense. We'll get to that. But basically, the woman is Europe, and the sun she's clothed with is Catholicism, the religion of sun worship, or maybe you can call it Sunday worship. And basically, the sun god is now the reigning sun. They interchange that, and that's also a part of the magic, is how they use language. You can spell things differently, but you mean the same thing. So I see England as the mother at some point and United States the son. Later, the woman becomes the bride, not the mother. And you see with Brexit, England leaving the European Union because the mother figure is no longer needed. Now you need the bride figure. The mother is no more. Right? It's just a change in time and context. But because different people are playing, different agents are playing these rituals, they might use a way to get rid of those things so that they're not part of the picture. It tells you in Revelation that the woman, the mother, was taken to a place prepared by God by the wings of an eagle. The eagle basically is the United States. I mean, it's a remnant of Rome, blah, blah, blah. But let's focus on, let's not extend this. Basically, the eagle represents the United States. So the woman moved to the United States. The mother has moved to the United States. And this time, they're not invoking Abraham Lincoln for the birth of a nation, but I think rather they're invoking the wedding of a nation, the marriage, basically the marriage supper of the lamb to the bride. So now the woman becomes the United States. The son became the bride, Abraham Lincoln became the son. Now the United States is the woman taking the place of Britain. So it begs the question, is there an antichrist? Because I think there are many of them that is coming in the spirit of Abraham Lincoln. Because even though some of these guys might be heroes, and I think they create them to be heroes in our consciousness, but I don't trust these guys. Some of these people might be devils incarnate. So if they're begging civil war, it's like instead of a birth of a nation, and you hear a lot, they're talking about the soul of a nation. Like we need to fight for the soul of the United States. And even when you talk about Sophia, we were talking about Sophia, the woman, the bride of Christ, right? In Gnosticism, they tell you that she's like the soul, representation of the soul. So it's like now they're invoking a similar time period, but this time for the wedding, when the bride becomes one. The soul, you fight for the soul. These things are planned. I don't believe these are just coincidences. I believe they're putting it right in our faces. These are actors. They're actors from the pit that are just this. That's my belief. So yet at another dimension of their false matrix, we're going now to the individual level, the individual people, right? We've gone from the artificial intelligence level, and then we went to the group of nations. Now at the individual level, the mother might be Princess Diana, taken away after birth of Charles. Is it Charles? The one who married Meghan Markle. Yeah. So basically, the mother lost. You can say, she, there was this accusation she was dating this dude, blah blah blah. So maybe she lost her innocence, gave birth, right? Just like Sophia wanted to create a child without the husband, so she gave birth to this thing. Basically, basically she gave birth to the son. The son maybe is also the dragon. It's like it can be confusing, but it's like one thing is another thing at a different time, right? But basically, I believe also this is another part of the ritual, and they invoke these things in the past. It might not surprise me if they start talking a lot about Princess Diana again. So basically, the mother, Princess Diana, taken away after the birth of Charles, and now the woman is no longer the mother but the bride, Meghan. So Meghan basically is in the spirit of Diana, and the next guy, who might be Obama, right, might be in the spirit of Abraham Lincoln. So, and you see that Meghan and Harry, then it's Harry, not Charles, my bad. So you see that Meghan and Prince Harry, they fled from the dragon. So basically at the individual level, at another dimension, the dragon might be the royal family. So they fled from the dragon to the United States. So what would this mean for England? I believe that England is going to be taken out. Geographically, maybe an attack that makes it a place you can't live anymore, or maybe such a big tsunami. And I go more with tsunami, although it's a dream, it might have a different interpretation because of a dream I had. I think I have mentioned it before, even on YouTube, but I had certainly mentioned it when I had it years ago on my Facebook. But basically, I was in England. I know I was in England because I was talking to my cousin who lives in England. And we were on a street separated. There were houses on one end and we were on another end, on the other end of the street. And there was this big wave of water coming in. And I was basically telling my cousin to go in and get his mom. But if he cannot get her out of the house, not to stay in there for too long. To me, it makes sense because his mom is Christian, but my cousin is Muslim. So for me, it's like I was telling him, go try to make your mom a Muslim before this thing comes. If you cannot get her, you leave. Don't try to stay with her, right? So now let's go a little bit at some of my post on. It's like the end of the post, but let's just go through some of my recent tweets. I basically said my current view of the woman in their false matrix and what ritual I see playing out. The sun is taken up, QAnon becomes Space Force. And I believe the sun is also played by Trump. Because Trump, he keeps saying he's the builder. And they tell you the sun is like the architect. Even if you look at in WWE, they tell you Seth Rollins is the Monday Night Messiah, right? And they tell you he's the architect of the shield. He tells you he's going to burn this place down. It's not a... I mean, you can see it as a sign from the Lord because I believe that in the true matrix, when the command of the Lord comes, things resonate with that command. So sometimes you feel it in your spirit because it's resonating the command. So you can see it as a sign from the Lord that the Lord is justifying his scripture. But I believe they're willfully playing these things out so that even though we're not aware of it, at some level our consciousnesses are accepting these things as reality so that they can move us to a certain direction. So it would make sense that the sun is to be slain, taken away. Donald Trump, right? So QAnon becomes Space Force, taken to the throne. So the woman, England, goes from being a mother to being the bride, the United States. That is when it comes the time to invoke the wedding supper, the wedding feast of the Lamb. It may also mean that Obama might get a head wound because, why would I say that? Okay, it has escaped me now, but basically the lamb was slain, right? So yeah, so and then the lamb comes back for the wedding feast. So blah blah blah, invoking the past, so it's part of the present rituals, as with the protest at Lincoln Memorial, invoking Abraham Lincoln and the birth of a nation. So you know, I don't believe these things are coincidences, right? So I have reason to believe that England will be removed because the woman goes from being the mother to being the bride. And if I may point this out as well, even though we're focusing on the woman, it may be that at the individual level, now you're talking about Epstein, right, and Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew might be the tail of the dragon that sweeps a third of the stars. So the stars might be celebrities, and maybe by him, these celebrities would be exposed. So this is all being played out in ritual. So the mother is no more because you don't need the mother anymore. You only need the bride. So I believe this is there's going to be disarray in England. I think maybe in their matrix everything starts at the moral level first. I saw a Strong's Concordance once that pointed me to that. I can't go into that right now, but it might be that we see these things happening, Prince Andrew and sexual pedophilia and the elite of Hollywood and all that. So, but here's the thing, yeah. You may think that so all these rituals, I think, eventually relates to the true bride, which in their mind will be counterfeit Israel, because I don't believe this is the true Israel. I believe the true Israelites are spread over Africa, Europe, America. So Africans, black people, Hispanics, some whites maybe. But this is not the true Israel, right? Israelites would return. I'm a Muslim, so sometimes people think it's strange, but I believe in Israel. So eventually, I think they're talking about the bride being counterfeit Israel, right? And the city, Jerusalem. So, and the counterfeit husband would be the one who might be like the Antichrist, the artificial intelligence Antichrist. And so likely the mother is Mecca. It's like even in the Quran, they say we send to the mother of the cities. But the mother might move from Mecca and the artificial intelligence Sophia and move to becoming the bride in Israel. And it might mean also that at the AI level, because of the AI ritual, they might also attack or, try to destroy Mecca or the Kaaba. So I don't believe they are coincidences, right? What else is happening in the media? We've talked about George Floyd, which I believe was a ritual killing, and they're using this memorial to justify it. Whenever you see they put in a lot of mind, concentrating a lot of consciousness towards a thing, you have to look at it clearly and try to see what they're pushing it towards. So there is that, and then there's also Madeleine McCann. So basically, I think it's like they're looking at the innocence will be taken away. So it's like when they're pushing the mark of the beast, the innocence of the human being will be taken away, and this would cause you to be possessed by demons. So I believe they're invoking all of those things. And I believe all of these things is to happen when there is the singularity, when all the dimensions become one. So when the basically, I call it time reversal, right? That's why time doesn't matter. You can do these rituals in a different time, but everything merges, becomes one later. So it doesn't matter when it played out or how it played out. So when the artificial intelligence, when the marriage feast happens and the Antichrist actually becomes one with the AI, right? So I believe they would tear the veil during that ritual. They would maybe create a black hole, take us through another dimension, just like in warp speed, right? When you move dimensions at a fast speed. So all these rituals eventually have to do with Israel and Jerusalem. But they're playing it out at different levels to control the subconscious mind. It doesn't mean, for example, that Prince Harry himself is possessed by the demons or by Satan himself. It doesn't mean that even if they might use his child in a ritual to play a role, maybe to play the role of Apollo, which I think they use Meghan and Harry's child to play the role of Apollo in the ritual. It doesn't mean that these people are possessed or they are devils themselves. Maybe some of them are possessed by devils, but they're just playing the ritual out. So that child might be an innocent child. And sometimes they give birth to innocent children, but through certain processes of training the mind, whether it's through torture to fracture the mind or manipulation, they get the mind, it's like shaping clay to form a particular shape so that that shape can be possessed by a demon who manifest in that shape. So basically your subconscious mind, think of it as clay, and they're shaping it so that it's the shape of a demon that can possess it. So you find that even some of these parents, they give birth to these children, they don't love these children. They want to bring their devils from the pit into our world. So that innocent child, they don't want that child to be anymore. So sometimes you find that some of these people have multiple personalities, like even with the case of Mary Magdalene. In some explanations, they tell you that sometimes she was okay. She was a nice lady, but sometimes she was just crazy, possessed, right? Until she was made whole, right? When the Messiah redeemed her, basically, right? When the Lord, through the Messiah, I should say, redeemed her. So these are rituals they're playing, but eventually it's about your mind, because they want to move your mind to a point wherein when the truth comes, you would not be able to identify it as truth, and you would not be willing to accept it as truth. At that point, you lose the protection of the Lord, and that's what Satan wants. And then eventually he would just enslave you, connect you all to the AI. Or you're possessed by a demon, so you're like a passenger in your own mind. You're like a prisoner, right? Whereas he's disguising these things. He's making it look like he's giving you something good, but it's not something good. So be careful what you follow. Be careful who you sympathize with, thinking, oh, these are just people. And then if I'm going to say something about time reversal, we see even in the scripture there is some aspect, well, I see that even in the Quran there is some aspect of time reversal. In the Surah Al-Kahf, the 16th chapter, the chapter of the cave, it talked about Moses was sent by the Lord because he had heard about somebody who was given a particular knowledge he didn't have. So he wanted to find this person so he could learn from him. They reached a point and they reached the junction between the two seas, and then they traveled further than that, it says. After they had passed it, Moses wanted to eat. He asked for the fish, and some people say the fish symbolizes the Messiah, right? But basically when he asked his servant boy, I think it's Elijah or something, he said he forgot the fish at the junction of the two seas. So they went back, right? So it's almost like the fish was taken away. It got lost. Just like the Messiah was taken away. And then another prophet came and then set everything aright so that he is to come back. So even in the time reversal, it's already in the plan of the Lord, right? That's how I see it. So that said, I would like to look at these verses from the 7th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Araf. It says, "And it is He, Allah, who sends the winds as good tidings before His mercy, until when they have carried heavy rain clouds, we drive them to a dead land, and we send down rain therein, and bring forth thereby all the fruits. Thus will we bring forth the dead. Perhaps you will be reminded. And the good land, its vegetation emerges by permission of its Lord. But that which is bad, nothing emerges except sparsely with difficulty. Thus do we diversify the signs, the verses, for a people who are grateful." So if you look at the meaning of this verse, you can apply it to the heart. We have to work on our hearts. We have to prepare a good land so that when the Lord sends His mercy, He can bless us with that life, that everlasting waters, so that the fruits, the good fruits, can emerge from within us. The Spirit can emerge from within us. We have to seek to elevate ourselves, purify our minds, purify our hearts towards each other, and turn our hearts towards truth. Let's not be so convinced we know what the truth is. Let's be humble in the knowledge we've been given, and let's give all praises to the Lord. So, but to end it all, I would like to say nothing seems to me like it's a coincidence. It seems to be planned in the smallest detail. And I guess it's like QAnon used to say, that the news unlocks the map. So when you see certain things in the news, know that they are invoking something. That being said, I can point out some other things I noticed. The name George means gray-haired, and the name Floyd means farmer. So it's like a gray-haired farmer, like an old farmer. Basically, a farmer can grow crops, but a farmer can also be a shepherd. So Floyd is like shepherd. It's like symbolizing Jesus. Then if you look also at the name of the police officer, and I believe they symbolize the four horsemen. So I think like the coronavirus came as the first horse, as a ritual for the first horse, right? To talk about the one that was given the crown, the rider of the white horse. And I believe later on there would be like these wars in diverse places, civil wars, sleeper cells waking up. That would be the rider of the red horse. And then there will be these cyber attacks, I think, bringing down the economy. But all of these also will be fueled by bad weather, famine, floods, earthquakes, right? But basically, the name Derek, Derek Chauvin, Derek means what does Derek mean? It means a ruler of the people, and Chauvin means like bald. So it's like a bald ruler of the people. So it's almost like he's the symbolism of the rider of the white horse. Maybe you can say the rider of the pale horse. But basically, he's the bald ruler of the people. That's just also interesting to note. And recently, they've been talking about baldness. In the news, something else appeared in the news. They were talking about the male hormones that cause baldness are linked to some of the deaths. The reason why so many men were dying instead of women. So baldness doesn't seem like a coincidence that they're bringing it out there. So you can also investigate baldness in the scripture and see when it is used and how it is used, and maybe you can come up with something else that they're trying to point out. So this is just a little bit of an insight into my worldview and the false matrix that they're setting up and what I see. I hope it was beneficial. Peace be upon you.